Welcome to our community. Susie Thomas with you this morning. We are welcoming Bill Sanderson, who is the founder of the Akron Fossils and Science Center. And good morning.
Good morning, Susie.
Well, very excited to have you here.
Glad to be here.
First of all, I think folks might be interested in knowing what drove you to start something like this.
Boy, that's kind of a loaded question, but I'm gonna get to it as easily as I can. Well, First of all, history in the church and Bible teacher and so forth, and I became very interested in this whole creation evolution discussion. And more so than anything, I kind of noticed that we were losing our youth. They didn't really have the ability to defend their faith when it came to being introduced to this whole evolutionary thinking. And I thought, man, we got to be doing something to encounter the culture as a church. How can we do something that's going to not only speak to the needs that the kids have, but also support the creation story, our Creator, and so forth. And so it was from that I really decided to launch this whole new museum.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think even in some circles of Christian education, some people are questioning, maybe God did it through evolution. I mean, so many things have gotten to be gray areas that didn't used to be. Are you finding it more difficult in this generation than before? And if so, then what can be done to turn that around?
The answer is yes, and there's two reasons for that. Number one, I find that so many of our kids, even now, aren't educated well in their understanding of the biblical text and how that's put together. But they are so inundated with so many options in terms of where we came from and where are we going and those kinds of things. So it's a confusing time, a time when we really do need the truth of God to speak to us.
When you say where we came from, you're right. And it's become so ingrained in so many mainstream things that children are getting from a very early age. I mean, even you go back to Sesame Street and they start to show little fish turning into growing legs and starting to walk. And, if you can't prove that it was an ape, then maybe it was something else. But it almost, Bill, takes more faith to believe in evolution than it does to just receive and believe the gospel as we know it and to see what does God say? I made the world and here's how I did it. Can you respond to that?
Very true, Susie, because, the kids are taught that and they don't have the ability to stand back and to even admit the possibility that this is an amazing, intelligent designer who put these processes in place. Instead, it's couched under this whole thing of molecules to man by chance over millions of years, and since we don't really have the proper responses, so many times the kids just don't know where to go for it. And that's exactly why the museum was put together the way it was. We wanted to be able to be a resource for the local church. The local church doesn't have time to begin to develop all the scientific responses to what is being taught, out there. And that's that's where we come in. That's who we are. We're there to support the local church and say, hey, wait. The Bible's fine. The Word of God is fine. Here's how he did it, and here's how it works.
Yeah.
And so that's what that whole thing was designed to do in the first place.
I say two things. We tell children, and we want them to become critical thinkers, except when it comes to evolution. Don't criticize that. Don't be critical thinking there. So what do we find at the center, at the Science Center?
Well, it's an exciting place. Jody Brewer is our executive director. She's just an amazing lady in terms of programs, and she has birthday parties that are all themed. She has science camps. She has Super Science Saturday every Saturday. It's a real in-depth stuff. One of the things she really doesn't take a lot of credit for, and we have a Simply Science course that goes on during the winter time because our summer hours are our strongest time. We tend to be weather-driven because we have an outdoor adventure land we call Truassic Park, and that's, subject to weather. So the programming is very strong there. And she teaches Simply Science. We have over 90 students enrolled in the Simply Science, everything from physics to biology, chemistry, and so forth. So during the winter, we do a lot of that. She does a lot of that. But also the central tour that we have is designed to have the people look at the questions of life, because the evidence is the same, Susie. You look at the evidence of a fossil, and it's all in the interpretation. If you have an old Earth interpretation, you're going to interpret that maybe happened over millions of years and so forth. If you have a young Earth framework or mindset or worldview, then you're going to have a different explanation for the same evidence. So in the exhibit hall, we look at the evidence and we ask the question, what does the evidence best point to? Millions of years or something that was designed and created? So the museum has a lot of activities. It has a lot of science things. It has a lot of programming, but also the heart and soul of that whole thing is designed around the evidence that supports the creation and the intelligent design story. And the Outdoor Adventureland is a 2-acre park where we have fun. I mean, the kids can make a paper airplane that'll fly 200 feet. You know, paper flies with good design. We have a 200-foot zip line, 56-foot slide, a 4-person helicopter swing. So there's a lot of fun things out there for them to do and actually kind of apply the science in a real sense.
While you're doing it, Truassic Park, tell me about that.
Well,
that sounds too great.
Yeah. When we were conceiving, I took the time to go through all the creation museums that were around at the time in the early 2000s, and I pulled together what I thought were all the best ideas. And one of the parks had an outdoor adventureland, and we kind of used that as our model because I wanted it more to be not just an educational museum, but also a fun place for families to have a good time, groups to have a good time, and things like that. The zip line's been around all that time, and we're the only one in Akron, and it's always a big hit. We call it our leap of faith when you finally step off the edge of the platform. So.
And I would think that would be such a draw for anybody who just wants to go zip lining, and then they see all this other cool stuff that you've got.
Yes, exactly.
How does one go about just starting a fossil and science center?
Well, with a lot of research, a lot of faith, a lot of nudging from the Holy Spirit, some financial resources, and I had a personal collection of a lot of fossils, things like that. Collected some other things as well, and from that began to use that in kind of the message. I have one of the spiritual gifts that I have is teaching, and being able to teach the science in a way that people could understand the intelligent design or the creation model.
And funding, how do you keep something like this up and running?
You don't stop your day job.
Okay,
you ask everybody that you possibly can to support us. It was kind of an evolution in some sense. I used the building that I was in for I have a financial planning practice. I've been doing that for 41 years. I used a portion of that building to start it, and then we continued to expand. We had a small little lecture hall, and then we had the outdoor adventureland. That's always been around. And we continue, I had tenants and I moved them out and added more to the museum. And finally, I moved out too. So the museum has taken over the whole thing. It's about 8,500 square feet, so it's a fairly large building. And Jody, of course, has it all decked out in all of her various themes and so forth. And each little room has something different.
So very cool. How can we find it? Where exactly physically are you located?
It's in Copley, Ohio, right at the corner of Cleveland-Masson Road and Minor Road. And the actual address is 2080 South Cleveland-Masson Road. I'm sure we'll talk about the places to find us, too.
Yes, we will. Tell me again, let's get back to the funding part of it. Do you have any fundraisers? Do you do fundraisers? Is there anything, or is this all people that are interested becoming sponsors and champions for it?
Yes. Every year we have a silent auction fundraiser in the fall, and that's kind of our main fundraiser. We've tried with grants, and sometimes we get them. We are debt-free, so we don't carry any load or anything like that. And we have passionate people who, from time to time, give to us. And the concern that we have for our long-term funding, as my practice is winding down, I don't know that I can support it at the level that I have before, so we have to have some other people step up. So, yes, we do have fundraisers. We do ask people to donate, become a Nifty 50, which is a $50 a month donor. We just received a nice donation from someone who said, I really like what you're all about, and sent us a check.
Awesome.
So At this point, it's totally in the Lord's hands, and if the Lord continues to bless us, we've been doing this 12 years, then we'll continue to go on, and if not, then we'll find another way to fill the needs.
We have listeners who could certainly do Nifty 50 and beyond. How can a person become financially involved in supporting this?
It's all on the website. You can go
Okay.
to the donor tab and click on that or call.
Give us the website one more time.
Yeah, it's Akron Fossils. Now, that's plural, akronfossils.com.
Mm-hmm.
And the phone number is 330-665-DINO.
Oh, cute. Okay, 330-65-DINO.
665-DINO, correct.
You're kind of a renaissance man, Bill. Let's talk about, you've got a financial planning business. You had your own personal private collection of fossils.
Yes.
Tell us your background.
Well, kind of a diversified background. Spent some time in the service, of course, and then I was 3 years
Thank you.
as a teacher in Southwest Ohio. Did some fun things with kids. I was teaching, coaching, waiting tables, and I thought, man, there's got to be another way to make a living.
Yes.
So I actually kind of left the teaching area, although, as I'd mentioned, my spiritual gift is teaching, so that never really leaves you.
You're still teaching.
And even in the financial planning practice, it's a teaching.
That's true.
We're always teaching our clients how things are working and why we're doing what we're doing, and so forth. So I've been doing that for the last 41 years, and that's an exciting thing. And one of the things that we do is we take a canoe trip on an annual basis to the Minnesota-Canadian boundary waters, which is a pristine part of the wilderness that is still maintained by the government. And the water's so clear you can still drink out of that water.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
in fact,
my.
I wrote a book about that, which is sitting in front of you, called
Yes.
Getting the Wilderness in You. That's the title because the person I worked for in the 60s, his name was Rolf Skrine. He was a canoe outfitter, and one of his goals was to get the wilderness in you. And the book is about my time with him, the story of the Northwoods. He actually went up there in the 40s, and he learned to guide with the Indians and had a canoe outfitting business. And I went up there as a kid, and we went on canoe trips. So my book is the story of him and me, kind of all woven together. And it's a real interesting history of that particular part of the country. It's a great read. It's a fun read. You'll laugh out loud and so forth. So.
Yes. How can people get this? It's Getting the Wilderness in You. Where do people find this?
It's on Amazon.
Awesome. And by William M. Sanderson II.
Correct. Yeah.
Help me understand the title. It doesn't say Getting to the Wilderness or Getting at the Wilderness in You. It's Getting the Wilderness in You. Why?
Well, Rolf always said that man couldn't make the wilderness, but the wilderness could make the man.
Huh.
And he always said that getting the wilderness in people was something he always wanted to instill, that so that people would understand the beauty, the majesty, the power, and the glory of the creation. Mm-hmm. And his cut of that world was in the Minnesota-Canadian boundary waters. And he's still alive. He's 96 years old. Wow. Still knows the country like the back of his hand. Every time I speak with him, I learn something new about the country, and I've been going up there since the 60s. And so every year, as part of the museum, we take a group up there. Right now, we have 4 people enrolled for the wilderness trip so far this year, and we'll take up to another 4 if we need.
Is this where you began to find fossils, or how did you get your fossil collection?
Well, the fossil collection I kind of got by collecting some things, but in my journey through the review of the creation science museums, I began to obtain a lot of those in meeting some of those people, find out where they got their things, and there are actually a lot of conventions, fossil conventions, where you can go. But I was able to obtain a lot of them through the sources that provide those for actual museums.
So you're finding the actual fossils, you're buying them from other people who are collectors, or a little both?
Yes, a little both.
Wow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my gosh, that's exciting. All right, we are speaking with Bill Sanderson. He is the founder of the Akron Fossils and Science Center. Need to take a short break. We'll be back after these words. You're listening to Our Community.